Welcome to the June 30th edition of the PFF Forecast. We're actually recording this on Monday evening of the 28th because we have Nora Princiotti from The Ringer and The Ringer NFL show on today. We're going to talk about the AFC East. We actually have, this is a fantastic podcast. She breaks down what's happening on the Bachelorette this season, and that morphs into a great football conversation later on in the podcast after we do a ton on the AFC East. So there's a lot to get to. Let's rock. All right, I am recording the intros and outros after we had the interview, and my dear friend Eric has more important things to do than I do. So he had to run, and so I'm going to keep this super brief, and I'm just going to tell you that we have a great show, a fantastic show for you today, and that the College Football Preview magazine came out on Monday, the day that I'm speaking here. And you can get it for only $7.99. That's 600 pages. It has elite analysis cover to cover. It has results of the PFF simulation engine. It has analysis from Seth Galina on the scheme and the passing game. It has analysis from Anthony Tresh on all of the different X factors and key players on offense and defense. It is amazing. There are heat maps of where quarterbacks are throwing the ball. There are heat maps of where receivers are running to catch the ball. It's literally got everything, and it's $7.99. So go to pff.com. You can get it with a College Football Grades Plus subscription for $7.99. Just get it monthly, download that baby, and it's yours for the entirety of the season. But I think you might want to stick around because all the subscriptions at PFF have the College Football Preview magazine tied to it, and they have great content coming out throughout the season. So with that being said, let's get to I just said with that being said for like the fifth freaking time. I apologize. My voice also a disaster. I apologize for that too. I won't apologize for a great interview with Nora Princiotti and Eric Eager. It is a long time coming. We have welcoming back, and you can tell I'm already off to a hot start. Voice is gone. I can't think. Nora Princiotti of The Ringer, who was one of our favorite guests last year, and you were gracious enough to come back. We are going to talk AFC East. It's going to be a blast. I have some other topics as well. Nora, how are you?
I'm doing very well. I am, George. I'm worried about your voice. I think
there's a lot of vowels in that last name, George. Like that was close. You already went to the edge.
We're going to have to talk. We're going to talk about the AFC East. It's going to be great. I'm so happy to be here. Afterwards, maybe we do like a type 5 on preferred lozenges and like gargling with salt water and sort of what can be done here, because you're doing great, but you're a little worse for the wear, it seems like.
Yeah, it was honestly, we're recording this on a Monday night, and when I woke up this morning, I shit you not, it was bleak. I hopped on a call, and the person on the other side was immediately concerned. It's like, you're going to be in trouble. I'm also in a hotel, and so my ability to go like make tea was not exactly like the easiest thing in the world. I will persevere. Speaking of perseverance, I want to start off by having you catch us up on one of our favorite shows, one of Eric's soon-to-be favorite shows, like in 5-10 years, which is The Bachelorette. And I just want to preface this by saying I've watched 5 total minutes, but those 5 total minutes consisted of a man shadow boxing in a room by himself, preparing to fight every single other bachelor on the show.
Yeah.
And that was how I knew it had to be a great season.
Well, okay. So the 5 minutes you saw shadow boxing, did you see anything else in the 5 minutes?
Yes. I then heard a lot of interviews about from other guys talking about how, I forget this guy's name, but he was clearly not there for the right reasons. And then I saw the rose ceremony, and I saw that he ended up not getting a rose.
Okay, so I'm going to give you 3 names.
Okay.
Do you know Greg?
Describe him.
Very basic white, just a white, your classic bachelorette white. He's from New York. I think he works in like marketing or something.
I
don't know.
You literally just nailed 80% of contestants on the
You stop that sentence and we're just like, no, it sounds good. I'm gonna go with
like
it.
That's
and
pretty
it
much
actually
it.
was.
Here's the thing is that Greg has like really captured a lot of the hearts and minds of Bachelor Nation so far. It seems like I do not see it. I have to honestly, this is so good for me to just be able to get this out here. He is so dull. And it seems like if you do a little Instagram stalking on him, he's clearly an actor. Like he clearly wants to be famous, but he's just sort of, I don't know, dull and has like swooshy hair. And he goes and says hi to Katie when she's sad. Then we have another contestant, Thomas, who is clearly shaping up to be the villain or one of the villains. He got off to an okay start. He's also he is like incredibly tall and clearly athletic and very handsome. And I think is appealing to Katie as such. He's actually like a friend of a friend of a friend. Per sources, used to get in a lot of fights in college, and it just sort of seems like we're starting to go down that path. And then Carl is a motivational speaker who might have been the one that they were talking about. Carl did one of the most just pointless Bachelorette contestant implosions I've ever seen, where it just seemed like he got really, like for a motivational speaker, it seems like he got really psyched out and then just told her that everybody in the house was bad. And then when they turned on him because of this, acted incredibly surprised. So Carl did not make for a good television watching experience. So like not upset about how that
What a
turned
bad
out.
Game theorist. I mean, even George over here knows you win by being positive. You don't win by tearing others down, right? Like, right? You bring down the whole boat that way.
It is actually, no, it's a really, really, really great point, Eric. It's important to Bachelor strategy because this flabbergasts me every season. The people who call out other people.
Yes. Preach.
They never benefit from doing it. Being the guy who goes and pulls the Bachelorette aside and says, look, like, I want to tell you there's something going on in the house. She always looks him in the face at the end of that conversation and says, thank you for telling me. It's really important that I know these things and I appreciate it. It never, like 2 episodes later, it's always completely obvious that only cost that contestant. It made the lead associate them with like bad drama. And also they lost an opportunity to be like, in the 3rd grade, my cat died and I'm sad.
Let me tell you what that is. That is, hey, I'm knocking on a door and it's the door to the friend zone mansion, because when any guy that goes, hey, let's hang out for a second. Do you want to go over here with a drink and hang out? And then starts talking about dramatic things and other guys, that is saying, yeah, I want to share in drama. Let's talk about our dramatic situations. That is friend zone. That's all. That's what you're doing.
But also,
thank you.
But part, again, I'm not an expert here. I did watch the season Mike was on, okay? And Mike lasted 2 or 3 episodes despite not doing anything, okay? Nothing on camera. Mike did nothing on camera, but what he didn't do was tear others down. And I feel like this is just like football, right? This is just like football. The goal should be to get in the championship round somehow, get in the Final Four, and then tear people's heads off. But like, and in that way, like, you're also like in some sense dating the other people at the house, right? And you can't like go tearing them down right away, because you have to like make it like, it's such a low probability event that you have to like put the probabilities, like make them higher by like getting to the final round. You don't get to the final round by not only having the woman hate you, but also like 5 of the dudes hate you and try to take you down. Like, this is not how it happens. This is ecology in personified. And it just to me seems like a bad strategy. But and again, it didn't work for Mike, but it at least got him on the air for what, like 3-4 episodes, George.
You also have to talk to the woman. Like that is still a prerequisite. But Nora, go ahead.
Well, it's because when the women do it, then they seem dramatic. They seem like people who would be involved in drama, which is, I would say, typically something that people do not respond positively to it. And then when the men do it, and I'm stereotyping a lot here, but so is the show. So accept me on those grounds, I suppose. When the men do it, it's just like, you guys just didn't have a good date. Like, yeah, sure, maybe you flagged some things you would like this person to know, but you got to trust that they're going to figure them out eventually, because all she's doing is walking away from that conversation being like, oh, that was, Joe Schmo over there is giving me butterflies and this dude is not. He's just telling me that these other people suck. And like it or not, that's not going to, that's not a good date. It's just not a good date.
It's a horrible strategy. Why would I talk about someone else not at the date? I'm either talking about the woman or I'm talking about myself in response to what she wants to know about me. Anything else that is about another person in the situation is a total loss. Eric, I think you have a good strategy. I'm going to say this though. There's no point even when you get down to two or three people, where you should be actively calling attention by name when you're talking to the Bachelorette about another guy. However, you're on to something which is important, which is understanding what the other guys in the house do well and don't do well. I think is something you can play into your strategy, where you can actively show that you are actually strong at some of these things that maybe they aren't, that, you have to hope it works. You can't call them out by name, but I think I would leverage that if I had to strategize, try to do this.
Yeah. I'm talking about when it gets down to 2 or 3, right? Yeah, then you got to become a kamikaze.
No, you're going to lose. If your goal is to win, you are going to lose if your strategy is to talk about other guys to the Bachelorette. Period.
It never works.
Okay.
And so the other thing
this is where my Bachelorette knowledge is limited. This is where I need experts come in and tell me.
That's the important point, which is that whenever these guys do this, I always want to ask, how many seasons of the show have you watched? And can you name one time where this worked out for someone else? It's less about I think everything that we're saying is spot on, where it's like, you just want to go have a nice time with them. Then that'll work out well for you. But just more basely than that, in the history of this show, it has never gone the person's way when they do it. And yet people keep doing it, and they're about to do it. So Thomas, the one who's super hot, but seems like a loose cannon.
Yep.
They did a date where people were supposed to basically say their red flags or things in past relationships that they were ashamed of or regretted.
I saw part of that too. And that was amazing.
It was wild. But Thomas, while other people were like, I cheated on my girlfriend, or I did this, or blah, 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 blah. Thomas basically just said, I have every red flag in the book, but then didn't list them. And just sort of tried to skate on past that. And I think now all the rest of the guys are having trouble following the rules that we are so clearly laying out for them. I hope they're listening to this podcast, because it just seems like they're really salivating.
He went halfway to Eminem in 8 Mile, where Eminem's like, this is who I am. He lays it all out there. This guy didn't go through the details like Eminem did, though.
He was just like, I've led people on. I've been a bad boyfriend. I've gone after girls when I had a girlfriend. I'm paraphrasing, but he just sort of skated through your laundry list of terrible qualities in a significant other, but didn't do any of the sort of storytelling or showing growth or regret or anything. So he was just basically here are a ton of examples of me being a bad boyfriend in the past. And then he said, also going to be honest with you. And this is the part where I think it's unfair, because he said that her red flag in him should be that he didn't come on the show looking for her. Either he didn't know that it was going to be her, or he was interested in being a contestant and maybe having an opportunity to go on Paradise or to be the next Bachelor or whatever. I found that sort of refreshing, because a lot of the people who say that that's not the case for them are lying.
Yes.
And I just don't understand how people don't know this. But I think that is clearly about to be a fairly dominant narrative. It's just people are going to be upset with him.
Because the drama hunters will latch on to that like a piranha to blood in the water. And it will be, that's all the guys are going to be able to talk about. That's the other thing, Eric, that you have to understand is sometimes because guys are on here not to win the show, legitimately, Like half of them aren't. So playing a suboptimal strategy to actually win, right? It's like an NFL team that is happy with Kirk Cousins. You are going
You're speaking my language, George.
Yeah. You're going to maybe have more chances to make it to the playoffs. But with that suboptimal strategy, you have zero shot of winning a Super Bowl.
Yeah. Well, and I think Nora brings up a great point about this gentleman that sort of like leaves it all out there except for all the good things about him, which I feel like is suboptimal, except much like the Dolphins, the Jets, Bills aren't this way. We oftentimes would prefer the unknown going into a season, right? The intrigue, the thing that we haven't seen happen yet versus a person like Kirk Cousins, who we know exactly what's going to happen. That's why I think the AFC East and the topic of today.
You are really looking forward to this transition, but I have to.
Eric's like, we got to veer left. Let's go. It's time.
Not fair. Because I had one more thing on this that I thought was really funny.
Okay.
There are 3 notes on the Bachelor website on ABC about all of the guys. And the 3 guys that you mentioned have some very interesting ones. So I'm going to read a few of them. Thomas, the guy we were just talking about, his 3 things about him. He wonders if The Rock can really eat all the cheat meals he posts. How stupid is that? Thomas's favorite flower is a sunflower. Okay. And Thomas is the biggest red flag. Probably. This is his red flag, Nora. Thomas is guilty of rocking Ed Hardy in high school. And that, to me, that was what his red flag should have been.
I mean, that's honestly, I don't know, a cheater or an Ed Hardy enthusiast.
George,
you got to pick one.
George, you're in charge of the PFF website. We should all have something similar for our writer bios.
Yes. Yeah, we absolutely should. Carl's favorite holiday is New Year's Day because he loves the feeling of a fresh start. I can't. I
can't. Everything. Carl has never once done anything that sat right with me.
Also, New Year's Eve / New Year's Day is one of the more overrated. Like
I like New Year's Eve. I'm one of those people that is pro New Year's Eve. I would never say my favorite holiday is New Year's Day. I also wouldn't say my favorite holiday is New Year's Eve. I just think that it has merit. New Year's Day. Come on. What are you trying to prove?
I tried to create a great New Year's Day once. I went to the sports book and watched a bunch of bowl games. And that, like, to me, it's like, can I pair one of the things I love the most with one of the holidays in the calendar? Can I pair those and just salvage a good holiday? And the answer is no, because the bowl games suck too. And like that, the only thing that New Year's Day has for it is like the college football games. And like the bowl games are not very good. We just had a college football preview come up, but like bowl games are not fun. Like they're not.
You're speaking all of those reasons. It's bad. It's generally bad for sports. Also, it always costs too much money to go to a party. New Year's Eve, like parties at places, are my biggest regret. Maybe like my early 20s. Holy shit! Like just burning money. So, anyways, we've hit on everything but the AFC East. I'm even going to push my last Bachelorette question to the end for one of our questions.
But we'll loop back because I have one for you, but we'll do it at the end. Let's do the AFC East first.
Perfect. Let's start with this. We'll go to the Patriots, your beloved Patriots. And I want to start by going back actually a few months here to the free agency moves, because we haven't talked about that. And I just want to know what do you think of the free agency moves, given now what you know, obviously, about what they did in the draft? What's your take on what they did in free agency?
I don't mind it. I think the goal was for that to be a better team, right? I think they had some very obvious glaring weaknesses and they had ways to solve it. Those ways involved throwing a lot of money at a lot of players who maybe don't merit quite that much. Once they get on the field, like I think this is one of those things where there's this boomerang of, oh, look at all this stuff the Patriots are doing. That's so interesting. And then you start to get down into the nitty gritty and go like, okay, is Nelson Aguilar really worth that much money? Probably not. And then it's going to come back around when they start actually playing where it's like, okay, is Nelson Aguilar still worth that much money? Still probably not. That said, is it useful for Gunnar Olszewski not to be like one of the top few receiving options on this team? Yeah, absolutely. It's going to help. And I think one of the confusing things about looking at this Patriots offseason is that it is genuinely unclear who the quarterback that they're planning for is, or if there is one that they're planning for. And so that to me that's like the big wait and see part, right? Because I think particularly if it's Cam, I think it can be a little bit of a mirage to look at all of the moves, because I've just found myself sort of talking to a few people and just reading stuff out of mini camp and OTAs there, and then just looking at the roster and thinking there are a lot of ways where this turns out to just still be like this very run first offense that tries to power itself that way, and where that's still what they identify as the strength of the team. So I don't know that, and a lot of this depends on Cam versus Mac. I don't know how much it'll shift exactly what they're trying to do, but they didn't have NFL quality receiving talent last year. So it's hard for me to see it not looking a lot better and coming out of the season feeling like, well, it helped. Like it helped fairly significantly. Yes, I think they do now.
I think that the thing that they do have, which is what Cam succeeded with in Carolina, was good tight end play, the potential for good tight end play. And, you know, Cam's MVP season in Carolina, his receivers were like Ted Ginn and et cetera. I have actually don't remember the second wide receiver there, but he did have Greg Olsen.
Ted Ginn could run fast.
Yeah, but Aguilar is a quick player. Like Aguilar has some speed, and he certainly showed something as a deep threat in a couple seasons in his career. I mean, he's very.
George, are you a Kendrick Bourne hater? Look, sensing some Kendrick Bourne slander coming from over yonder.
I'm a little hurt by the Gunnar Olszewski slander that you just threw out there. You know, the next Julian Edelman, like that hurts a little bit. No, I'm kidding. I think like. I would say that they now have a roster of borderline number 3 receivers in 2021, which is why I think it's so interesting to look at the quarterback battle, because Mac Jones is going from having the greatest receiving talent on a team in college to having awful, throw the tight end out for a second, Jonnu Smith and his amazing 480 yards last year. And going to a team now with no receivers. And if you play, that's why I feel like Cam is the guy. And I'm curious your thought here, because I figure they have to go run heavy. And why would you go run heavy with Hamburger Jones? He can't run.
We got to stop this Mac Jones hatred, George. The Niners didn't take him. We're all relieved. They actually took the wrong quarterback, but like we have to stop. Mac Jones at pick 15 was a great value for the New England Patriots.
Oh, I agree.
And we have to stop. Okay. But look, their receivers are okay. Like Kendrick Bourne made 2 like really important catches in the Super Bowl for the 49ers a couple years ago. Like he's a player. Nelson Aguilar can be a player, you know, and the 2 tight ends. Like I especially think Hunter Henry was the second one that signed, but he's like the better of the 2, frankly.
Yeah.
Like having that sort of pair, as well as, I mean, you look in the backfield, Damian Harris was one of the best running backs in the NFL last year. You know, Sony Michel's fine. Like, and their defense should, like, there's a path for them to win. There's also a path for them to be terrible. And I think that that's what, frankly, like if Bill wants to see this thing long-term, that's fine. And I think the path to being terrible is that their defense stinks and they have to get into a bunch of shootouts. And yes, if that is the universe in which you're playing, the fact that your receivers are Nelson Aguilar, Jacoby Myers, and some like randos, that is a problem. But like they weren't going to like remake the thing overnight. It wasn't going to be the 98 Vikings overnight at the receiver position, because Nora's right. Like they played with like, I mean, I say this every podcast, but like Damiere Byrd and you are basically the same player, George.
An exceptional athlete. I just don't have the voice.
Just don't have the voice for it. Well, that more than anything is my point, right? Because think about the tight ends. Like, I think probably the most significant improvement they made is getting Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry in there. Part of that is based on the fact that, okay, I remember this time last year kind of gaming out, okay, if Dalton Keene is good in the red zone, gets this many targets, and Devin Asiasi and blah, 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 Those two combined for like 4 catches. They did nothing, literally nothing. And I don't know what's up there. Like a year into your NFL career, like it's too early to write either one of those players off, but they invested a lot in the tight end position last offseason and got literally nothing in return for it. So I think more than anything, my feeling about the Patriots offseason, it is almost impossible for them not to be better, because the fact that they squeezed 7 wins out of that roster last season is fairly stunning.
Nora, and that's a good point. So here's the question I have then, if you're looking at this from like a betting perspective, because their win total's 9. I think everybody views this team as from a base rate of 7 wins. But I think that your point that you just made is an extremely important one. Fundamentally, that team's probably a 5-win team, right? If you don't have some luck against Arizona at home, if you don't have like the Anthony Lynnist of meltdowns against the Chargers in that one game, like if you don't, that team should have won 4 or 5 games. So then if you're going to bet the over on the Patriots, like you're not looking at a 2-game or like a 1.5 game if you add the 17 game. You're looking at like a 2 or 3 game improvement. And do you think that they've made that kind of jump with the roster moves that they've made?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I do with the offense. Honestly, if I were betting that, as you know, I'm so wont to do, of course, my fear would be that the defense is old. Like that's the thing that would be sort of sinking in me. Like, Devin McCourty's like the greatest dude. How long is he going to be able to do this at the same level? Like there's a cliff somewhere, and we've never had to really stare over it with them yet, but it's got to be somewhere. Also, what happens with Steph Gilmore? Like that is a situation where, I mean, Bill never wants to be backed into a corner and never wants to act like he's backed into a corner. But that defense, having a shutdown man corner, I don't know how you operate it if you lose that in the way that he's designed it to want to do in the last few years when he's had Steph. So does that mean that he's just going to capitulate? Well, that's not really in the makeup either. But if they don't find some way to have both people be happy, you just start to have all these little sort of pressure points where it's like, are we just assuming that because a lot of the guys who opted out are back, that this is all of a sudden going to be a good defense again? And because Belichick's there and because the scheme's good, like that's not an unreasonable assumption. But I just think the baseline on offense that they were coming from last season was so low that I feel pretty confident saying like, yes, they threw a whole bunch of money at the problem, but it will be better one way or another. The defense, I think, should be better. That one, I'm a little bit more like, we'll see. Because a lot of those guys are up there. But yeah, I feel like they'll win 10 games. Like that, it does feel reasonable to build in not a Chargers-iest of all Chargers meltdown type of thing, but like someone's gonna, screw up. Someone's gonna get scared of Bill.
So let's say they win 10 games. Who wins more of those games, Cam Newton or Mac Jones?
I think it's Mac. I really do. And I should be very clear. I don't know. And the number one reason that I don't know is because while there's a lot of reporting that Max looked pretty good so far, do you know who also has looked pretty good so far? Jared Stidham. Like they're not, no one's playing defense. There's just not a whole lot going on. Like we will see. But I do get the sense that Mac just plays quarterback in the way that they would like their quarterbacks to play quarterback. Like there is a lot of flexibility there when they need to be flexible. They can design an offense around everybody or anybody. I do still think that there is a desire for timing, precision, accuracy, and whether that's like a horrible thing to bank on when the quarterback is coming from receivers who are Alabama open to now being in a situation where it's not just NFL open, but New England open, like we'll see. But they do things like bring Brian Hoyer back. Like what's Brian Hoyer doing except for being the person not named Tom Brady who knows how to play quarterback in that system better than anybody else? Like he's not there to play. So it just feels like there's all this stuff that tells me they would really like to fast track Mac if it's possible. And if he doesn't prove that it's possible, then they won't. But I don't think that the part that I feel pretty confident in is that I don't think that there's this thing where it's like, this is the New England Patriots and we won't start a rookie sooner than he's absolutely earned it. Like, I don't think there's any of that going on. They drafted him higher than they've ever drafted someone with Bill. Like, I think the expectations are there that if he's good enough to do it, he should just do it.
Let's move to the Buffalo Bills. And I was, yes, you're the new AFC East juggernaut. And Eric and I had a debate on our Sunday podcast about the 2018 quarterback class. And we pivoted, we then smoothly made our way into quarterback rankings, kind of unanticipatedly, but we did so anyways. And it brought up something very interesting about Josh Allen. So as someone, from your perspective, you look at Josh Allen, is he a top 5 quarterback in the NFL?
Is he a top 5 quarterback? Yes. Ooh, God. No, but he's just outside of it, right? Like, he's probably 7 or 6 or 7. Where did you guys land?
I put him at 5.
I put him at 4.
Whoa.
I'm crazy. Wait, hold
on. Is this for 2021 or is this you're building a team?
This is this year.
2021.
Yeah. Okay.
So really? Throw Watson out. He's not relevant.
Okay. All right.
That takes one guy out of the top 5.
All right. That's actually sort of meaningful for this. But then Mahomes, Brady, Rodgers, where did you Mahomes, Brady, Rodgers, Josh Allen? Is this?
And I had
those were the
Wilson
4 guys left last year.
I had Wilson ahead of Allen.
Yeah. So I would too. And then I guess it just depends whether or not you factor in Watson. So he's 5, 6. He's right around there.
That's kind of so.
It's bananas. It's one of the most bananas things that's happened in football in the last, I don't know how many years, but at least 10.
And so that was, I think that's being overlooked because everyone loves, recency bias. But I'm curious from your, in your perspective, do you feel you've seen enough? Where do you think we are on the Josh Allen, roller coaster, so to speak? Is it only, up from here? Or if you're a team like the Patriots, like the Dolphins, do you think there's regression here for Josh Allen this season? Where do you land on that?
So I think he can, this is going to sound like I don't know how to do math or how math works. I think he can regress and still get better, right? I think there is room. I will explain that because that is something that technically makes no sense. But I'll explain how it works inside my brain. So Josh Allen, to his credit, I think has shown a lot this offseason where he's at least aware of the things that he wasn't doing amazingly last season. He was doing most things pretty well, but he's talked about how, throws to the left were tough for him, in breaking routes were tough for him. And he said, that's what I want to work on. And off-season quotes do not make or break a player's development. A lot of them are just things people say, but those are sort of specifically in tune with areas where he needed to improve enough so that you at least know that he kind of gets it and that he's not look, you have a season like that, it can go to a lot of guys' heads, and the work ethic, the mentality is not there. And at least it seems like he's focusing on the things where he needs to focus. So he could become a better quarterback. And I think part of the Josh Allen discussion that's always been important and that always, kind of frames why he can be someone who's had this sort of low probability outcome in terms of how he's progressed is that he didn't have private quarterbacks coaches from the time that he was, 10 years old or whatever. He didn't have one of those trajectories. He didn't play with receivers in college who are going to make him focus on, touch throws or throwing with anticipation. The way to win was to cannon something as far down the field as you could and hope that it was going to get past the defender and the guy would just sort of find his way there. Like it makes sense that he would be someone who sort of came on a little bit later. And maybe there's still room to do that. Now, he had a really good season last year where a lot of things went right and where his top receiver, who's really good, and I don't expect to be anything but really good yet again, is, also had one of his best seasons in the NFL too. That's not going to happen every single year. Like Josh Allen was so good last year and it was such a departure from what he's done in the past that it's fairly natural to think like, okay, maybe it won't be quite, he won't be quite as accurate. He might take a step back here or there, but he can still be a really good, like, I think he's a fundamentally changed quarterback from the guy who just sort of looked like he had no idea what was going on. It doesn't mean that if Josh Allen had his 2020 season every year going forward, he would be like the most valuable quarterback in football, maybe second to Mahomes or something like that. It was just so insanely good. It feels silly to be like, he absolutely will do that again. But I think he can still like be working on things he needs to work on.
I think.
Go ahead, Eric.
I think you make a good point, right? As far as like you look at the second half of the season, you're talking about, finishing the year with 6 consecutive wins by 10 points or more, and most of those teams were sort of wounded. You had the Chargers, the Niners. Somehow the Niners were favored in that game, which is crazy to me. You had the Steelers after George proclaimed them dead. The Broncos, Patriots, Dolphins, like all those teams, the Dolphins were the one that was sort of snuck up on you. But like you look in that, and it was sort of a second half of the season that was very easy for them. You wonder, again, with a first place schedule, a division where I think we're going to talk about the Jets and the Dolphins here are a little bit better, I think. It'll be a challenge, but I agree with you that like one of the things that's endearing about Josh Allen is somebody who very much thought that he couldn't be what he was last season is the growth mindset. Like it's something that is, he's certainly not, he's not a mercenary in the same way that like Kirk Cousins is, right? He's not like, he's very much, and I think that when you look at the AFC, Herbert very much looks this way as well. The 3 quarterbacks I think have the most arm talent, Herbert, Mahomes, and Josh Allen. And Watson sort of was like this until everything, but, let's throw his name out of there. But like those 3 guys, like very much like give rise to like they look like quarterbacks who want to be here for a long time and want to win versus guys who are kind of cutting corners and trying to get the next contract. And I find that endearing about Josh Allen.
Well, I do think that he just has a good understanding of what he needs to do, because I remember talking to some of his trainers last year and they were talking about they spent so much time working out on the beach because you're never going to make like a truly on platform throw when you're doing it on sand, because your feet aren't going to be level. They're going to be sliding. You're going to be uncomfortable. And that was something that he felt was really big for him. So at the very least, like sometimes this stuff is really simple. If you have someone who is dedicated to working hard and has a grounded, nuanced understanding of where they need to get better, like not everybody's got that. Fewer people than it seems like should have got that. And it's not a bad place to be.
This conversation is making me think about something that we've talked about a lot in a very different light, which is the idea that a guy comes into the NFL and there are some things that you just can't change. And as I've gotten older in my life, I've really forced myself to challenge that kind of narrative, right? As you get older, you go, wow, is there less opportunity for me to improve as a human? And that's bullshit. Like, that's not true at all.
Right.
The problem is that most people don't think they can. And so and the older you get, the more entrenched you get into the ways of doing the same thing. And you just do them the same way. And so the same results happen. And in the NFL, is it maybe just that a lot of quarterbacks come in and they're not met with an opportunity for really devoting themselves to that kind of improvement. They do the same shit they've always done. They're, by and large, the teams support that. And that's why they are what they are. And you mentioned Josh Allen throwing to his left. I'm looking at the PFF quarterback annual that you can get on PFF.com for just $9.99. This is incredible, by the way. Yes, you get data like this. And and this is incredible. Okay, so we track where the quarterback looks at the top of his drop. When he looked to the left, with one receiver on the left. So an ISO left look. 24% of his throws were accurate, charted as accurate. The league average is 52%. Okay.
Okay. What is
That
the
is
right?
to the right, his accuracy rate, accurate throw rate, 73%, which is 35% above league average.
Yeah.
He's not an ambi thrower.
Well, now, but like that's the kind of thing where, that attention to data, and we talked about the Bills being one of the smartest organizations in the NFL. Like that is not something that I would expect out of a guy that was the least accurate quarterback in the NFL for 2 straight years, And so I'm beginning to kind of turn my narrative around as far as guys can't, improve as much as it is. We don't know which guys are going to have that. And if they do it right, they can. And look at last year, going back to the same charting data that's available in the quarterback annual. Out of 32 quarterbacks, he threw the 3rd fewest rate of what we deemed perfectly accurate throws. There may still be room for him, as we've just alluded to improvement. And I'm loving my number 4 ranking even more. I feel like I've nailed it here with Josh Allen.
Here's the funny thing. Here's the funny thing is that if you look at this Bills offseason, it's like the, slightly JV seems like a pejorative, but like slightly smaller scale version of what the Bucs did, where it's just everybody's back. Everything's the same. Like the biggest thing the Bills did was switch punters, basically.
Hey, Emmanuel Sanders can still ball.
I'm sorry. Okay, so swap Emmanuel Sanders for John Brown and replace the punter. That's their offseason, right? So in some ways, and this would support your number 4 ranking, it's like the only reason that we're not talking about the Bills in the same way that we're talking about the Bucs, well, is one, that they didn't win the Super Bowl. 2, Tom Brady and Josh Allen are the polar opposite version of kind of a quarterback in this situation, where it's like Josh Allen just did it for 1 year, and before he looked like a completely different dude. And then Brady is Brady. So you can look at the Bucs and go like, okay, why would anything be different? Mm-hmm. And then you can look at the Bills and say that too if you want to. And it's just the sort of weight of the earlier Josh Allen seasons, which should be factored in. Like there's nothing wrong with considering that information. It's smart too. That just makes it feel like, okay, can this be real? But it's not about anything that happened last season or since then, that I think like there's just still that nervousness of, okay, is he truly, truly this guy?
I also, as a studier, as we talked about on the Ringer NFL show, which was, if anyone listening to this hasn't listened to that show yet, I don't know what you're doing, but go check it out. Eric
I don't
and I
either.
Talked about many things, including the Steelers, of course. But I was thinking about what I've seen from these guys on social media. Stephon Diggs is super active on social media, and he does a lot of this type of similar training. He's out on the beach. He's, running on sand, just like Tom Brady is. I remember Stephon Diggs, after they lost that game to the Chiefs, standing out on the field and like looking at, the other team that had just won. And that would make me excited, because they had their most successful season, but it doesn't feel like they actually view it that way, at least outwardly. Yeah. So if you're thinking positively about this, I think that's how that's how you have to frame it. Like they haven't accomplished anything yet. They believe that. And so, it's only an opportunity for them to improve in some of those edge case situations. Their win total. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I just think that they exceeded expectations so much last season that I think there's a tendency to feel like, okay, where, have they maxed out? Like where further up could they possibly go? But when you talk about, okay, the data about Josh Allen throwing to his left, also, they got very little out of their tight end position last year. And I think most of that they're just counting on Dawson Knox playing better. But there are places on this roster that were not heavily productive last season. So there's room to grow in a few different directions. So I don't think like there's places where they can take a little step back and then still find somewhere else to make up for it.
Bills win total is at 11 right now. Number of wins for your Buffalo Bills, Nora.
I would go over. It's like right. But
Right.
no, but with an extra, this is my crutch for everything is with an extra game. I mean, yeah, why not? Why are they not? Tell me why they're not winning 12 games.
Okay. All right.
I think variance is sort of the deal, but like the other thing is the Jets and the Dolphins, I don't think are cupcakes this year, right? Like that's the
Yeah, so let's talk about the Jets and the Dolphins here, kind of together, because I have this question for you, Nora. Sean McDermott, a guy that doesn't like. We're talking about head coaches for every other team, not talking about Sean McDermott.
Yeah.
All four of these coaches are really good coaches. You're starting a franchise with one coach. Rank the AFC East coaches in the order that you would select them to be your coach to start your franchise.
So, and then this is for the next 10 years or whatever?
Yeah.
Jeez. I don't think I can pick Bill first. Like he's going to have to stop. I would pick Sean McDermott first. Then I think I would go Flores. Then I mean, Bill is the best coach, but he's just really old. Sorry, Bill. You're, very spry, but I think you worry that that's just, you're not going to get a lot of return on that. And then Saleh, I think, goes fourth there just because he's sort of unproven.
You agree, Eric?
I put Salah up there. I think Salah has a lot of like the characteristics of a great coach. And
so he's Lebanese. Yeah, I get it.
There's that, but there's also like the 49ers sort of like defense, the way that they like rallied last year despite not having literally any players. The other thing is like vis-a-vis the Jets, like I just think like the difference between him and Gase is going to be so humongous that like I think that's the biggest like boomerang this year is going to be the Jets. So that being said,
when you say up there, what is up there?
Is he ahead of Bill Belichick?
See, that's what I don't know. Last? I don't know. Because Belichick has been low key like unimpressive is the wrong word. Like I still think he's a top 5 coach in the NFL, but like fourth downs, he's been lagging behind, like stuff like that. Like I think for me, it's McDermott 1, Belichick, but then I do have Salah sort of like tied with Flores.
Wow.
Yeah, and I like Flores. Like I think all 4 of these coaches are great. I think when you look at the future of this division, it's going to be pretty solid because you don't have any like abject failures there the way that the Jets have had with like Mangini and Rex Ryan was fine, but like but like they've been, and like Bowles I think just it wasn't given a chance either. Hopefully like maybe I'm like talking out both sides of my mouth with Salah here, but like I think this is finally the coach they give a chance to, and he ends up being pretty good.
I just think there's no way to prepare for being a head coach until you're doing it. It's like being president or whatever people say. Like you just don't know. And I think I have enough trepidation there where you are managing so many egos and you actually have to figure out how to make an impact when you can't have a hand in everything, that I just don't. I mean, I think it's one of the toughest things that like team presidents and GMs and owners have to figure out is like, what actually matters here? And I think that he seems like someone who had built a really good unit and coordinated a really good unit, who also seems like he can kind of build a culture and connect with people. So expectations being very high makes total sense to me. It's just, you never really know.
I asked that question because I didn't think McDermott would get enough love, and I'm an idiot, clearly.
He's like really good.
Yeah, I think McDermott is the clear-cut number 1 guy, and yet, everyone talks about Bill Belichick. Brian Flores, I thought was on, of course, to be the coach of the year last year. and made a really gutsy move with Tua and Fitz, which I think he'll be judged on a lot, like based on what happens this year. But I think it was a good move in terms of you're trying to win a Super Bowl, not just get to the playoffs. As much as I love Salah, I can't put him over Belichick. It's too unproven. I'm going to agree with you there. So what are your expectations then for the Dolphins? Like, do you see them as they're competing for a division title, or is it like we'll see if they can take the next step and then they'll be competing the year after?
Well, so the first priority for them, above what their record is, if they make the playoffs, how far they go, what timeline they're on, like, they have to figure out if it's Tua, if Tua is the guy and someone worth investing in on a longer term basis this year. Like, nothing else matters more than that. And I think, to their credit, they've put themselves in a pretty good situation to be able to figure that out. I mean, they certainly have, one of the best groups of receivers. I think, obviously, if you could have a better offensive line protecting him, that would be nice, but we can't always get what we want. And I think they're in position one way or another to have a final answer on Tua by the end of the season, because I didn't like, and I love Brian Flores. I thought he was incredible in New England, and I think he's done an incredibly admirable job there so far. I didn't love how they handled the Fitz Tua situation. And look, like, if I were a rookie quarterback and I looked at, when I saw Ryan Fitzpatrick, I would just see like the Grim Reaper, like, coming to make me stressed about my job. But I didn't think that it was a good situation. It just didn't seem like there was clear intention there. It just seemed like they were kind of winging it. And when you have someone who you've invested so much in, young like Tua, it just didn't seem to me like the type of thing that made the most sense in terms of giving him like a good runway. Obviously, if they felt like he was going to, raise their ceiling or really, really develop given that time, then I understand the logic in that. It's just that that's not really what it looked like. Like, it did not look like he was ready to do that. So that was why I ended up not being thrilled with that decision, is because it just was like, okay, what were you basing that on? Because
he looked
sure as heck were,
yeah.
Right.
That was
so
the thing.
Like,
it was
why?
like you expect him to come in and like, well, you must have been seeing this in practice, right? And the way he played, it felt like there was no way he could have been outplaying Fitzpatrick in practice. But so here's a question. You look at the futures here. You have the Jets and the Dolphins, kind of these young teams, the Patriots in a little bit of flux, and then the Bills at the top. Brighter future. In other words, like, are you more envious of the future the Dolphins have or the future the Jets have?
Wow. I think I'm more envious of the future. The Dolphins. The Dolphins have done more, I think, more legwork of, like, there's a heck of a lot more gaping roster holes on the Jets than in Miami. I think they have done, because, and look, Zach Wilson has just as much bust potential as there is that the Dolphins will decide that Tua is not their guy. So, like, I don't think that you can say slam dunk certainty in either case at quarterback there. And the Dolphins have done a lot more of the legwork of building up the infrastructure around the quarterback. And I think it's a wash at head coach. Joe Douglas is probably, I like both general managers, but I really like Joe Douglas. So probably a little bit better, but I think Miami.
Eric, because Eric is the president of the Zach Wilson fan club. Like, you can't really tell by the accoutrement he has in the back there, but hiding behind there is like a shrine to Zach Wilson. So, like, does the fact that you have so much more confidence potentially in that quarterback being great make up for, like, the fact that the sparsity of the rest of the roster?
Yeah, if you take the fact that we have uncertainty on Wilson, which is good. Uncertainty in quarterback is good. If it's compared to a year of data with a quarterback that's been kind of ho-hum like Tua, I think that Wilson has a lot more potential. And as such, I think the Jets have a lot more potential long-term. Like, I think the Jets are in a really favorable position here. I like Wilson as possibly the best quarterback in this class. And so like I would take them over the Dolphins just because I think Tua has a bigger potential of bust.
The 30, maybe not even 30-second version, but the elevator pitch for why. Does that mean you like Zach Wilson better than Trevor Lawrence?
I think when you look at accuracy above expectation, you think like stuff like that. To me, like all the statistics last season, throwing to Mitt Romney's nephew and still having a ton of like success. To me, I like Wilson. I know that the schedule wasn't as hard, but the supporting cast wasn't quite as good.
Okay, you do know that he looks like a junior baby boy band member, right?
True, that's true.
Doesn't it make you a little nervous?
NSYNC kind of shredded back in the day, though.
Oh, 100% true. 100% true.
I mean, he legit looks like he is joining not the New York Jets, but like one of the hype house or the TikTok groups.
Yes.
That's what he looks like.
Yes.
We'll be right back to Nora in a second, but I want to tell you all about Symbol. You've heard us talk about him before. There's a reason we keep pimping him. Today, or actually, I guess a couple days ago when you're listening to this on Wednesday night, they added college football teams to the list of teams that you can buy stock in. Yes, it's basically a stock exchange for sports teams. SIMBULL is the name of the place. You can go deposit $10 at symbol.app/PFF. Use promo code PFF. And when you deposit that $10, you're going to get a free PFF Edge subscription, which also comes with the college football preview magazine. So you can go buy teams based on 600 pages of data and analysis. Couldn't be a better pairing. By the way, that free subscription is for the whole year. It's a $40 value. You get it for $10. Go get it. Head to symbol.app/PFF. And now back to Nora Princiotti. So Eric was so infuriated by being put on the spot about Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson that his internet went down. And so Nora and I are going to close out the podcast here while Eric figures out whether he truly likes Zach Wilson more than Trevor Lawrence. I'm giving him one more time. But I had one more question about the AFC East, and then we can close out here. A lot of Bama quarterbacks here. Who has the better one?
Like any I can choose from anywhere? Or
no, in the AFC East, the best Alabama quarterback resides in Miami or New England.
Oh wow. Yes, I think yes. I'm going Tua over Mac Jones.
Right. Biggest reason why?
Just better guys to throw to. Like the people he's throwing to will be more akin to what he had in college than what Mac Attack is going to be dealing with.
Yeah, that's the funny thing about this is, from my perspective, the answer in a vacuum could be Mac Jones. I get very well.
In a vacuum, totally.
Oh, you agree? Oh, so totally it's Mac Jones in your opinion. But he's not good enough to overcome the supporting cast.
I'm really trying to nail this here. Here's the thing that I think Mac Jones was incredible in college. Like Mac Jones had a very, very, very good season. And I think that the 49ers, man, like they have put us all through, talk about a roller coaster. We've been on a Mac Jones roller coaster. Yeah. Mac Jones, in terms of what he put on tape last year at Alabama, was really, really excellent. And there is a possibility, and we can do this comparison with Tua, or we can do it with the other quarterbacks in this draft class. If he is a better, just pure passer by, I don't know what the percentage would be, but 5, 8, 10%, that makes a huge difference. If I were building an NFL team right now, I would absolutely want a dual threat quarterback if I could have one. Passing is still the most important thing. And if Mac Jones is really, really, really good at that, he will be a good quarterback, I think.
I agree with you. And the tough thing is that Kirk Cousins is a really, really good thrower of the football. Like my reasoning for as a very invested observer of the Niners pick at 3, from a monetary perspective, felt as though you can't draft a guy at 3 whose ceiling is Kirk Cousins. However, Tua's ceiling may not even be that, given what we saw last year. Like you hope that he overcomes it. I think what's going to be fascinating this year is the Dolphins have, in my opinion, done as good of a job to address that, so that's not an excuse this year. You think about Will Fuller, you think about Waddle, like those are guys that are going to get open over the middle of the field. This is crazy. Tua had by far the lowest PFF grade of any quarterback in the NFL, throwing over the middle of the football field. In Alabama, he was the best. So like, you know, you have to get guys open over the middle of the field. And if he can't, then this year it's like, okay, well, we need to go back to the well, right?
Right. Well, and there's like a total possibility they end up having to do that. And the thing that I think is interesting about it, I mean, the 49ers are the best example, but I would say the Rams are an example of this. I think there's been a little bit of a shift where we've spent the last, let's call it 5 years, like really recognizing that the sort of Shanahan-Kubiak offenses have taken over the league, and a defining trait of those used to be usually spoken about as you can elevate a quarterback who's not necessarily an elite difference maker. You can kind of, you know, the most extreme way to talk about it would be to say that you can design a quarterback proof offense. I think that has really been proven false, at least when you're trying to win a Super Bowl. And I don't know that you have to go much further to look for evidence of that than just to say that, like, Kyle Shanahan had a guy that he was winning the Super Bowl with.
Yeah.
And who very clearly, like, it makes sense what they did. Like, Jimmy was not going to get them there. But if that's the calculus now, it makes it really interesting for a lot of teams, because if it's like, you are either going to luck in to a Nick Folesian type situation and run, or you're going to have one of the best 5 quarterbacks in football, and then you have a shot. And if you don't, basically everything that you need to do has to be designed around finding your way to get one of those guys. Puts the Dolphins in this really interesting situation, because what if Tua is fine, right? And that's a very reasonable, the ceiling or the floor with a guy who, you know, was incredible when he played in college and has a pretty good infrastructure around him, particularly with who he's throwing the ball to. Floor can't be like that low, but if he doesn't show it, and that's the thought process, then they genuinely might have to make a decision after this year that would be pretty surprising.
Do you want to give a monster investment, both monetarily and then building around that guy, right? Ultimately, you'll pay him, to Derek Carr or to Kirk Cousins, you know, and it's like that.
When you don't give it to Derek Carr, right?
But what I'm saying is, and the reason I bring up Derek Carr is this: Derek Carr. So Tua, in order for me to say, look, Tua was fine, and I'm going to stick with him, it would have to be fine in the right areas. Like, I could put up with a little bit of decision making or some inaccuracy, as long as I saw like big throws being made to the intermediate levels of the field, the ability to hit the deep ball, like almost kind of what we saw of Josh Allen, despite the fact that he was like throwing it all over the place. Like, he did make some throws where you go, wow, there aren't many people on this planet that can do that. And then I could buy in some really special ability to, you know, read defenses or, you know, whatever it might be, where, you know, you have some ability to say, okay, we'll give it another year, because if he cleans up some of the stuff around the edges, he can be elite.
Right.
But if it looks like Derek Carr, then and that's not like Derek Carr slander. Derek Carr is a top 13 quarterback in this league, but no one is here saying that you can win a Super Bowl with Derek Carr.
Yeah.
Even Tom Brady said, I can't believe you're sticking with that motherfucker. So.
Oh, we've decided that's Derek now.
Well, that's what was reported earlier today.
Oh, I didn't see that.
And
Who said that?
I think it was on Pro Football Talk. And the belief is that it is Derek Carr, which to me is even more funny than Jimmy G.
But is the logic in that, and I'm speaking out of turn here because I did not see this.
I honestly
was
just
the
read
logic in
quote.
there just that Jimmy and Tom have the same agent?
Oh, maybe. So do you think the agent went to Mike Florio and was like, listen, buddy, it wasn't Jimmy G?
Well, so there was some talk after the original quote where people would say, oh, it's got to be Jimmy G. And then people would say, no way, he would never say that. They have the same agent. Believe you me, I don't think Tom would care.
First off, Tom's agent dictates absolutely fucking nothing about Tom Brady.
And they love it. They have a great relationship.
Yeah,
Tom Brady and Donnie have worked together for a very long time. I just don't think that Don is placing a call being like, people feel like you said that about Jimmy, and it's just really making this a tough work day for me, Tom.
Well, no. So first off, the reason we are ever mentioning Donnie's name is because of Tom Brady. So, whatever. But I could see it working this way where Don isn't calling Brady. He's like fine with Brady saying that, but he calls Florio and says, hey, a birdie told me it was about, so like a backwards way of protecting both his guys. He's like, Tom, I don't care what you say, but he comes back over the top. That's how I'm guessing it worked out. That would be my guess. So
I can see it.
AFC East percentage, let's roll through the four teams. Give them, adding up to 100, a percent chance that each team wins the division.
You guys make me do so much math. This is unbelievable. All right, it's fine. I'm ready. So Buffalo 60. I'm not going to do this in order because I want to make sure that it adds up to 100. Mm-hmm. So Buffalo 60. I'm giving the Jets 5%.
35 remaining.
So 15 for New England, 20 for the Dolphins.
You're pretty good at aligning with the market, by the way. I asked these questions of Eric and I try to ask these questions of everyone. It's insightful, people who might not follow the betting markets, but even those that do often go wildly different from a percentage standpoint than they would like when they actually see the odds, and that's like very interesting.
Well, I think there's a tendency, like the Jets actually have some promise. Mm-hmm. So it feels so deflating to be like, yeah, it's like, I don't know, 3%, 5% that they'd actually win it this year. But like it is, that's a very unlikely thing to happen.
No, I think that was about where I would put it. I think actually the only thing I might change is I might have Dolphins a little out. No, I don't know.
Like a slightly bigger slice of the pie.
Yeah, maybe.
Here's the thing Patriots. Though. I didn't want to have to, I wanted every number to end in a 0 or a 5 because if it didn't, then I was going to have to like do math on my fingers on this podcast. And that was going to be embarrassing. That
was the moment we were looking for. So
yeah, sorry, looking out for number 1, buddy.
All right, let's, so my bachelor question for you, I have to ask it. If there is a bachelor with, pick whoever the woman is, bachelorette, whoever the bachelorette is, and all the NFL quarterbacks are the bachelors. And let's assume that they're all single. So there's no,
okay. Great. I love this.
Now I feel like we could do an entire like series of podcasts on this where we like pretend who gets knocked out. But who do you think, like, what are some of the narratives and who wins?
So, okay. God, Tom Brady's face is so weird now. Oops, did I say that? Who wins? I mean, so Rodgers goes incredibly far and gets a ton of airtime. Like there's chaos there, but he's exceptionally charismatic, incredibly good at forming a narrative. Rodgers is, I mean, he's getting a hometown for sure.
Agreed.
I do think that, let's see. So Baker is just causing trouble. Like,
agreed.
Russell Wilson, Baker is probably the villain.
Baker Baker also like is the guy that shows up, like just doesn't give really a fuck about like winning, and it's just like drinks way too much and like says something stupid and like
Right. Yeah. There's something rubs him the wrong way in the house, and then there's just it's a whole thing. And
please give me a Russell Wilson take, because I have a very strong Russell Wilson in the NFL Bachelorette take. I hope it aligns.
So Russell Wilson is so weird, George. I don't know how he's going to do on this show. I'm not sure. I mean, on the other hand, no. Russell Wilson does really well, but nobody understands it. But like, Sierra's got to see something. I believe in Sierra, and that's why I believe in Russell Wilson on The Bachelor. Like, he's got to have some sort of weird charisma that is not easy to sense.
I could get into the whole Russell Wilson Sierra thing, and I'm not going to on this podcast. But here's what I will say. Russell Wilson goes incredibly far.
Yeah.
He does a great job in every date situation. But ultimately, he is the right reasons police. It consumes him until the point where it explodes and he can't handle it anymore. And he becomes a right reasons dictator. And it's incredible.
Oh, I've never, like, we've mind melded on takes before. I've never agreed with anything that you've ever said more than this. He absolutely would. He would just take it. He would not be able to let go of it.
He would be the funniest character for me to watch.
It would be incredible. I want Russell Wilson on so much television.
I think so. There's some really funny ones. Like, I think Jared Goff would be hilarious. Carson Wentz, I think, would be comical. From like just thinking about the way that they deal with people in the press and how that would look. I think Tom Brady ultimately is probably a little too old, actually, that like it hurts him more in The Bachelorette than it does on the football field.
That's fair. Tom Brady is the one who's like always talking about his kids, and you're like, all right, like,
yeah,
why'd you leave your family to come on this show?
Yes. I don't even need to talk about Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson doesn't make the show. So there are a couple of kind of dark horses that I have here, and I'm curious your thoughts.
Okay.
So I think two guys that do really well are Daniel Jones and Joe Burrow. They just
I'm really with you on Joe Burrow.
Daniel Jones looks like he was on The Bachelorette already.
Daniel Jones looks like that guy Greg.
Yeah.
I mean, they have different hair, but they again, like this sort of the whole this is white.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't think Daniel Jones does well.
Okay.
I support Daniel Jones, sort of, in the sense that I think I'm maybe like a smidge higher on him than the general public. Daniel Jones, I once saw walk through the tunnel, below Gillette Stadium. And it was after they played the Patriots. Brady walks by. He's like head to toe Tom Ford. He's doing his whole I'm Tom Brady thing. And then Daniel Jones walked by wearing a North Face vest and like a JanSport backpack.
Yeah, me in high school.
Yes, literally. Like just the uniform of a young man walking to AP Bio through the quad.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it simultaneously made me really like him and feel a little bit worried about him.
I mean, that was me at a point in time.
Yes.
Although, yeah, I think that was also like everyone.
Yeah, but you were not ready for like prime time as an NFL quarterback in that moment.
I wasn't.
And that's okay.
I wasn't ready to go to prom. Much less play in the NFL. So I think Jimmy G does well.
Oh, incredibly well. Yes.
I think
Jimmy might win.
I honestly, so I think the favorites. Here's who I'd make the favorite. I think Aaron Rodgers is spot on. Aaron Rodgers is the best combination of NFL skill and bachelor's edge skill. I think Dak Prescott makes it pretty far. I think Joe Burrow, as I mentioned, is another one of the favorites. I think Jimmy G ultimately might be the favorite going in.
Yeah.
And then another guy that I think could either be someone that should be the favorite or like could be a guy that's done on day one, depending on the fashion sense of the Bachelorette, is Cam Newton.
Yeah. No, Cam would stick around long enough that the lead would actually have to get to know him, because he would just be nice to have around. Cam could, and this is a sad outcome in some ways. Cam could get sort of typecast as the guy who is fun to have around. So you know that he's going to be like the bartender on Paradise the next season, but he never really gets like a full romance narrative with the main character.
Cam, I have the prototype, the archetype for you for Cam. Cam is the guy who halfway through, guys are going, is he just here so that he can be famous? Like he's recording Instagrams of himself in his outfits. I don't know, you know? And that I think Russell Wilson tells whoever the Bachelorette is that Cam Newton is not there for the right reasons.
Yep. Oh my gosh. Russell Wilson on the show. Like we as a society need to put Russell Wilson in more strange and unfamiliar environments, because I've never been more sure of anything than I am sure that the results would just be spectacular.
I think he's going to get them too, because I think he wants them. So
let's go. Let's go, Russ. Can I need,
yes.
Okay. I have a question that I need to ask you, and we can actually build it off of your question. Okay. So here's the other thing that I have felt about watching the first few episodes of this season. They like, and you know, it certainly does not mean that they are sorely missing Chris Harrison specifically. This franchise needs a host. I love Tayshia. I like Caitlin Bristow, who are just doing this sort of like, they're just sort of like around sometimes, but we need an authority figure to steer this ship.
Yes.
Someone with gravitas, someone who the contestants respond to. I thought the best choice for it was going to be JoJo, because she's just really good on camera. And I also think she's just so devastatingly beautiful that like the men get nervous around her, and it's very funny. Would you, maybe it could be you and Mike. Maybe we could do a lot of work with Eric in the buildup. Do you think that this is something that could potentially be in your future? Or alternately, is there an NFL quarterback who you think would make a good host for The Bachelor?
So it's funny you say this, because I told you I didn't watch a ton of the show. But one of my takeaways was quite literally, there were multiple situations that I've seen in 5 minutes that would have been better if Chris Harrison had been the host. And I agree. Like he gets the show, he gets the intention of everyone there. He understands good TV, but it's also good for the main character. And here's the most important thing. He's not afraid. Like, you know that when he talks to the contestants and the Bachelor, Bachelorette, he gives them both the real and what it means for TV. And like that, I think matters. I feel like that would actually be something that I would really enjoy and potentially be good at. I've never considered it as a career path, but now maybe I'll start practicing. NFL quarterback that would be the best at this. So I do think Aaron Rodgers would be interesting because of his quick like wits and dry humor.
Yep.
I think would be absolutely hilarious.
Yep.
I think people assume Tom Brady would be amazing because of his social media, but he doesn't get to bring his social media team with him, like in his ear as he's making comments. So I'm not going to put Tom Brady that high. I want to find a reason to make sure I'm not going with Rodgers unless I really feel that it should be Rodgers. I definitely think he's the leader in the clubhouse, because here's a place where kind of the elder statesman does better, right? Like,
yes,
I would not put, Mahomes on there, or like Baker Mayfield or anyone like that. I think this is cheating a little bit, but I think one of the funniest options actually that maybe has more reality would be Jay Cutler, former NFL quarterback, that would be absolutely spectacular for television in this situation. So I would say,
oh, that's delightful.
Current ones, I'm gonna go with Rogers, but I want to cheat and actually get someone that's looking for work potentially onto the show, and that would be Jay Cutler.
Oh, that's a great idea. I'm very for that. The other one that I would throw into the mix, Fitzpatrick.
Yes.
Ryan Fitzpatrick like sneakily doesn't speak very much. So it would be nice to have a little bit more like understanding of kind of what his vibe is when he has to actually communicate with people. But aesthetically, like, so here's the thing. My initial thought was, I wish JoJo had done this. Because that logic was grounded in, I think she's just so beautiful, it intimidates people. My other good option for this is just a British person. Like, I think someone with just like a good accent might keep people on their toes a little bit. Basically, like what I'm trying to do is manufacture 2 decades worth of institutional knowledge and credibility or whatever it was that Chris Harrison had in just some sort of random intangible quality within a human. And the best things I came up with were JoJo's really pretty and a British person might work. I do think that Fitz has like a little bit of that presence and that it factor that would keep
he's
people.
Definitely really pretty. And that is a characteristic
beautiful man
that he shares. It was interesting in thinking about this question though. I was also thinking about like relationship experience and how important that is. And Fitzpatrick would be like, I've actually had a successful, I think he's married and has like children and like has actually had a successful marriage. And like that
shout out Ryan Fitzpatrick's family.
Yeah. Like that might be a really nice touch to have to the show. Whereas the other guys would just be like, yeah, here's my advice based on like the 90 women I've dated in my lifetime.
Right.
So
shout out Jimmy Garoppolo.
I need to give a lot more thought to this because it's something that I'm now passionate about, and I'm gonna practice in the mirror later today for my audition. I don't know what do I have to do first. Do I have to like host like a D level show on like some weird streaming service to get noticed?
This is The Bachelor. There are no rules. I think you just show up. I think you just show up and you say, look, you guys need this. I can do it. I've got, maybe you could bring a friend or you can just go at it and say, look, I think I can help you guys out here. And
references.
I think they tend to reward people who take risks.
Maybe they have a Bachelor contest for the next host. We do this segment at the end of every single show, and I know that you've been super generous with your time, but the people need your recommendations. I've been waiting for your recommendations. Every Sunday, Eric and I recommend something. It can be, we've done everything from a book to like a routine change in life to like restaurants and places. So anything that you would recommend to the good listeners of this show.
Okay. So I live in Boston. So it was my birthday over the weekend.
Happy birthday.
Context you need for this. Thank you. Had a blast. First of all, if anyone is in Boston, instead of a cake, we got a chocolate cream pie from this bakery called Flower. The pastry chef is named Joanne Chang. She's done very well for herself. Great pastry chef. Fantastic. Really awesome. So I think you can take that as a specific recommendation or just the recommendation is consider pie. Always a good, just like something to keep in mind. Second thing, this one is more important.
Good.
This one is more important. Mamma Mia 2, Here We Go Again. One of the greatest films. Truly one of the best cinematic experiences anyone can provide for themselves. And it is just a click away. It is rentable for $3.99 on Amazon Prime Video. I would recommend it as part of a Mamma Mia 1, Mamma Mia 2 doubleheader, but I am strongly of the opinion that Mamma Mia Here We Go Again is the stronger entry into the genre.
Okay.
And I think everybody should have that joy for themselves.
I can only comment on the first recommendation, which is that pie is elite and everyone should consider pie at every opportunity, particularly if they can pair it with ice cream. I could go on. Another thing I could do is do a podcast on all pies and power rank those. I was going to say my favorite Boston restaurant that I've been to, I've only been there a couple times, but Neptune Oyster Bar, which is like a
Fantastic.
little hole in the wall place. Amazing. I spent like $250 there myself. I just went all
Well
in.
done.
I was like,
Yep.
they had like a lobster cipino special. I was like, yes, I will also have 24 oysters. Like, we're going all
Right.
in. Absolutely fantastic.
Well, you have to wait in line for like 9 years. So once you're in the door, you're kind of like, let's go.
Here's another recommendation. Go to dinner by yourself.
Yes. Yes. Oh, yes. Great.
They always have room for one.
You can always be a table for one. You can always sit at the bar. Also, solitude, delightful. Or like bring a book, just chill. Just do something nice for yourself. Wow. Yes, I fully agree.
That was the podcast. Nora Princiotti from The Ringer. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Eric, we hope is doing well with his Zach Wilson, Trevor Lawrence debate. We'll hear from him next time on the podcast. Nora, anything particular to plug coming down the pipe for you?
I'm actually on vacation. So the Ringer NFL show without me, I'm sure we'll take a step back, but no, I'm just kidding. It'll be Kevin and a selection of Danny's, your Danny Kelly, your Danny Heifetz, fabulous guests. We've also got Flying Coach on our feed. Like, everything's going to be great. They're going to be doing a great job holding down the fort. So I would go listen to them so that nobody calls me in when I'm on vacation. That's my recommendation.
Don't bother Nora on vacation. That's what
I have to plug.
Enjoy the vacation. Happy birthday. See you, Nora.
Thank you.
Special thanks to Nora for being so generous with her time, especially on the day after her birthday celebration. And shout out to Eric, who did not make it to the end of this podcast, not because he couldn't, but because he is an incredibly busy man. And without him, PFF would not run. So a shout out to him posthumously, sort of, since he's not on this podcast, for being freaking awesome. We'll be back with you on Sunday. Thank you guys for hanging out. Be well. Peace.